One of the central aims of victimology is understanding the victim's role in the crime, and that includes the degree of responsibility that they can be held to in regards to the outcome of the crime. In an attempt to remain as objective as possible, it's important for victimologists to avoid placing full responsibility on the victim and the perpetrator, because every situation is different, and there are certain characteristics and certain circumstances that might lead someone to be more likely than another individual for a certain crime. It's important to understand patterns in victimization because they lead to interesting insights that hopefully can be used by law enforcement. One of these is that if you're the victim of a certain crime, you're more likely to be the victim of that exact same crime again in the future. So from hearing this, I would believe that law enforcement could use this pattern from victimology to not only provide reparations for the victim for the crime that they already suffered, but to proactively prevent them from becoming a repeat victim. Because the textbook does describe that there is such a thing as a chronic victim, which is someone who continuously finds themselves in these situations. And so when it comes to stuff like that, victimologists have to use certain lenses to understand what it is about that person that led them to become a victim. And so there are some explanations that the textbook gives, and one of them is boost and the other one is flag. A boost explanation is highlighting the ability of the criminal. So the example is like a highly skilled hacker being able to get into practically any database, and that really has nothing to do with the victim, versus a flag explanation where it's the victim is more so vulnerable and the criminal is taking advantage of that, such as the example of someone leaving their car running in a busy city and that car getting stolen, which it wouldn't have gotten stolen had that person just locked their car. So again, there is some responsibility on the victim, and victimologists need to take that into consideration, because there are cultural responses, there are behavioral responses, and then there are biases to how we believe that people should be acting in certain situations. And when it comes to this should and should not, the textbook starts to give an example of victim blaming and the general view from society as to how much that person is to blame for the things that happen to them. So although there are differential risks, some people genuinely believe that it's not, for example, good to be out drinking when it's the first time that you've met someone, or they believe that you should always have a firearm on you to defend yourself, and that you should not be helpless in certain situations. And so that turns to victim blaming because they didn't think that that person did enough for themselves. Overall, all of this shows that the broader implications of blame, responsibility, and guilt are highly cultural and still need to be looked at as objectively as possible in order for objective facts and patterns to be used effectively.